When a person is diagnosed terminally ill, that person loses most control of their situation in terms of how long their lifespan will be. But how is it that now people's questions of value are somehow going to assure that these people lose complete control of their situation? The United States federal government should legalize euthanasia for all individuals over the age of 18 across the United States as a last resort for being diagnosed terminally ill. According to an article posted on the deathwithdignityAct.org by Davida Johnson on August 30th, 2012, an individual speaks about how both her parents, after being diagnosed terminally ill, his death led to her becoming a full-fledged supporter of the Death with Dignity Act. First, we will discuss the ill, which will give further detail as to what the issue is with the Death with Dignity Act at hand. Then we will explain the blame, which includes details as to why there is controversy and a better understanding of this act and its trouble being passed. And finally, we will discuss the cure, which will give you all and everyone across the United States who is affected by this or may not be affected by this a positive solution.
The problem is that the Death with Dignity Act is only legal in 5 states in the US because many people find it controversial. Euthanasia basically means the practice of intentionally ending one's life in order to end his or her suffering. The practice is illegal in most countries. It is only legalized in Oregon, Washington, Montana, the Netherlands, and Belgium. These states and countries are the only jurisdictions in the world where laws specifically permit it. This is a problem because people cannot perform the act if it is not legalized in their own state. People who are diagnosed as terminally ill would have to travel so they would be able to perform this act.
Many people believe that euthanasia is wrong and should be illegal. They see death with dignity as something negative and do not see how the patient is suffering tremendously. Many people believe that by taking a pill to end one's suffering, it is committing suicide. In an article called A Debate on Death with Dignity, it is said that more than 1/3 of these terminally ill patients don't ingest the medication even after they obtain it, but they derive great comfort knowing they have the option. This means that a good amount of patients that get the medication do not end up taking it.
Now that the ill has been explained, I will now discuss the blame aspect of the Death with Dignity Act. In the 2012 article debating death, religion, politics, and the Oregon Death with Dignity Act, researcher Travis E. Pierce from the Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine explains that the reason why the act has had so much controversy passing throughout the United States is mainly due to the Catholic Church viewing the act as suicide. Along with the Catholic Church comes many not accepting the act because the act is referred to as physician-assisted suicide. Also, in the 2009 USC article, Death with Dignity Combating Religious Opposition to Physician Assisted Suicide, researcher Christina Capulis writes, opponents of the law say no doctor should have to do something that violates his or her religious or moral ethics. This contributes back to the Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine because it also goes on to say that people consider the act as morally wrong because they believe a physician is supposed to help save a patient's life, not end it.
Now that we have mentioned the blame for this issue, let us now move on to discussing the cure. Death with Dignity can be a fundamental bill that would end all adults suffering from terminal illnesses. Kimberly Maynard's post for the Cable News Network on November 2nd, 2014 provides us with personal experience from someone who had terminal brain cancer and decided to move out to Oregon to go ahead and die with dignity. For Oregon is one of the only 5 states that allow this option as a way to end one's own life. Maynard states that she did not want to die, but that this was the best decision that she could have made for both herself and for her family. She states that although she made this decision, this does not mean that she is suicidal and she does not want to be considered suicidal. There are some prerequisites that one should meet when making the decision to die with dignity, according to the Death with Dignity National Center. One should be diagnosed with a terminal illness, be at least 18 years of age, be a resident of any of the 5 states who permit the law, and last but not least, be capable of making one's own decisions. Our responsibility as a nation is to come together, put all of our beliefs aside, and fight for what is right. Fight for something that will benefit our American adults who are unfortunately diagnosed with terminal illnesses. Because what good does it do for them to live their life if they are going to suffer? We must all cherish and praise the bravery of all the Death with Dignity patients rather than patronizing them over a disease that they have and will never have any control over.
The United States federal government, along with the remaining 45 states that are still not completely convinced about allowing terminally ill patients to end their lives, should consider legalizing euthanasia for all people over the age of 18 as a last resort for terminally ill diseases because it enables adults to decide for themselves in terms of their state of health depending on the severity of their illness. First, we went over the ill, which is a main issue that we believe should be considered not only in 5 states but nationwide. Next, we went over the blame that deals with controversy between the people in the state legislature that are halting the ratification of this bill. And finally, we went over the cure, which provides a solution for this controversy of whether or not the Death with Dignity Act is or is not assisted suicide. In order to keep terminally ill patients from suffering, the United States federal government, along with the remaining 45 states, must ratify the Death with Dignity Act because you never know when it will be your loved one suffering.